Welcome to Red Clay This Month, the show that brings light to important educational issues that affect students in the Red Clay Consolidated School District here in Wilmington, Delaware. I'm Dr. Judith Conway. I'm the Supervisor of Unified Arts here at Red Clay, and I will be your host for this show. We have a very special show for you today. I'm very excited. We have a new superintendent here in Red Clay, and I got the chance to sit down with him in the studio to chat about his background and his vision for Red Clay. I hope you enjoy it. I had a great time doing it and meeting him. Thanks for joining me here at the Conrad Schools of Science in the library. And we're going to be meeting and talking to Mr. Dorrell Green, our brand new superintendent here at Red Clay. So welcome, Mr. Green.
Thanks for having me.
Oh, excellent. So this is all about you today.
All about me.
And we're going to start with, tell me a little bit about yourself. You know, are you from Delaware or?
Originally not from Delaware. The irony of it, though, I've been here long enough now that my family has officially disowned me. I came to Delaware in the 90s, 1993, when I came to attend the University of Delaware.
Good choice.
Yeah,
good choice.
Yeah, go Blue Hens.
Yeah.
But originally I was born in Maryland, Eastern Shore, a small town called Easton, Maryland.
I know Easton.
Yeah, so Talbot County, Maryland. And in the mid-'80s, I moved to Washington, D.C. To live with my dad. So I grew up in my formative years in the Washington, D.C. metropolitan area.
Oh, nice. I like Washington, D.C. too.
Cool city.
Yeah. My kids live there now. They're all grown, and their houses are just outside of D.C. And it's so much fun to go visit.
It is. So my family's there, my parents and all of my sisters, my brothers. So all of my family on my dad's side are still in the D.C. area, and actually my mom's side of the family, everyone's still located in Talbot County, Eastern Maryland, Oxford, St. Michael's area.
Oh, yeah. Nice.
Yeah.
Now, some little birdie told me that you played sports in high school. You might be surprised. I played sports in high school too.
I wouldn't be surprised. No, yeah, definitely. Played football, played basketball in high school. That's what actually provided me with the opportunity to come to the University of Delaware, where I was awarded a full athletic scholarship. Played football under the Hall of Fame coach Tubby Raymond. So some exciting times.
Absolutely. Now, sports, and you know me, I'm an arts person now, they really help in terms of, I think, teaching kids like personality characteristics that they can then transfer. Do you credit any of your sports team playing with things like developing an attitude of a team spirit or determination, grit, any of that stuff?
Yeah, so you mentioned grit. I think the resilience, the ability to be goal-oriented, to work toward goals, to be selfless, because obviously playing a team sport, you have to figure out the concept. I mean, I know someone would always say there's no I in team, but I like to reverse it. There's a me in team. And ultimately what I do impacts the team. So being able to be conscious, and especially in leadership, and when we talk about leadership, having the fortune to be a solo team captain my senior year at the University of Delaware are always times that I can think back and reflect on those experiences to really say that sports allowed me to develop leadership skills. It allowed me to develop social skills. It put me in positions to be able to expand my perspective of time and place, being able to see things outside of my immediate environment growing up, So it just builds character. I think it really expands, and the arts do the same thing. Being able to have a goal in mind, or to be creative, to expand, things beyond, I think, what we typically would see as an individual or our limitations. So sports, the arts, any type of community building or group activity, I think, affords us that. We see that in the classroom when we look at how our educators structure their classrooms with collaboration and differentiated instruction and different things that we speak of in classroom. I think it all lends itself to teamwork, team building, and taking the individual out of it, and all of us saying that we're a part of a collective community.
Absolutely, and I think that stuff just transfers. Like, you don't You don't ever put that stuff in a box. Like math, I would have the tendency to kind of put that in a box. Oh, well, this is when I use math. But those things you were just talking about, those things don't get put in the box. They get to be a part of the fabric of who you are.
Yeah, truly.
And move you forward. So let's move on to education. How and when did you decide to make education your life's work?
So I would say education chose me. I didn't necessarily go in it with a conscious thought. You know, my 20 plus years now in education, I have this hypothesis that you get into education for one of three reasons. You're either a legacy family, where you're a child of educators, or you grow up in a home of educators, which I can probably say our oldest daughter, Jada, will likely, I could see her going into teaching. Or a teacher inspired you to go into education, or we have those who, you know, have had other careers and have been called to education. So one of those three reasons, but for me, it was an educator. A 10th grade teacher by the name of Melanie Caldwell. She was truly a blessing at me at a time where I needed, you know, a guardian angel, and she was that person who really inspired me, and literally she gave me an article. To this day, it was from the Des Moines Press, and it highlighted the need for black males to get in education. So as I was pursuing my athletic career and really being a student athlete, I kind of would get college questionnaires, really not sure what I wanted to study or what I had an interest in, and I just would put teaching or education because Ms. Caldwell said I would be a good teacher. And that kind of just started the path that as I would get prospective letters from universities and colleges, naturally they would connect me with their education department. And when I came to the University of Delaware on an official visit, a gentleman by the name of Jim Shaw, Mr. Shaw, who was my academic advisor in the College of Education at UD, kind of connected with me. And so I went into elementary teaching education, and I guess as they say, the rest is history.
Like, what is the biggest problem that you think faces teachers today?
Oh, where do we start? I think the biggest problem that educators or teachers face is the perception of what they do on a daily basis and the pressure that's put on an educator. You know, I'm long enough in my career now to see that students that I had are now parents. So seeing that idea of a generation and seeing what's changed since I started in education versus what a lot of our educators are pressed to address now. A lot of the social issues and I think that happens with each generation. You know, like those rowdy teens. But I think now culturally we're at a tipping point where you see a lot of the social determinants of health, the things that play out outside of school, manifesting themselves in schools. And no longer can I just come in and teach geometry, for example. You know, how do I connect that to the real world? Or not only am I just focusing on science, or math, especially elementary teachers. Children are coming in with so many more social needs. That idea of, meeting Maslow before we can actually reach Bloom. The understanding that those basic needs of food, clothing, and shelter have to be put in place. And I think that's a point of pride for us here at Red Clay, and the fact that under the leadership of Jessica Terranova and our school child nutrition program, the district served over 3.1 million meals last year. That's a lot of food being served, and so really looking at the full context of what teachers and the educational system is facing, and then the divide, the kind of social divide in terms of what people's perception of education is versus the reality.
Oh, yes, I absolutely agree. I didn't think you were going to go there, but yeah.
So I think contending with that is first and foremost, and then making sure that our educators are taken care of. I like to teach around trauma-informed learning and teaching practices, the understanding of brain science and brain development, where our youth are. Again, I think technology has kind of expanded our children's ability to see things far beyond their developmental levels. So how do we harness and actually cater our instruction to actually meet a true need versus a perception or kind of a worldview of where they may be, what they may be exposed to.
What made you decide to take the leap here at Red Clay and throw your hat in the ring? So
it's always been, once I've gotten comfortable in a position, it kind of becomes a little uncomfortable. I mean, I know that's an oxymoron, so to speak, but you know, so it's always looking for that next challenge. And I think up to this date, all of my professional and personal experiences have prepared me to lead the largest school district in our state, that being Red Clay. So I saw it more as a challenge, and it also just felt right. You know, I spent the past year and 8 months working within the Delaware Department of Education, leading up a new office, the Office of Innovation and Improvement, for Governor Carney and Secretary Dr. Susan Bunting. And that work was rewarding. I learned a lot, but there was just something missing, and it was kind of, I was finding my groove, not anticipating that Dr. Merv Doherty would vacate the position as superintendent. And when it opened, you know, I have 3 children in the system. My son Jordan, who's in high school, my daughter Jada, who's actually a 6th grader here at Conrad, where we are. Yeah, it is, yes. Definitely. And our youngest Jasmine, who is a 3rd grader at Heritage. You know, it just felt right. And my wife, who is also an educator, she's a world language teacher in a neighboring district, and yeah, she encouraged me also to apply, and just the outpouring of when the posting actually came, of friends and supporters within the community who actually encouraged. So knowing that I had that support behind me, I think was enough for me to take on the challenge.
Yeah, and there was a lot to that, right? In terms of public meetings and...
Yeah, so the board did a wonderful job, I think, of creating a transparent process, of having 5 community meetings, online surveys, survey opportunities for the public in general to just engage and kind of define who and what they wanted in a new leader. And then for me personally, outside of applying, I went through 2 structured interviews, and then I had to do a public presentation on a topic relating to the strategic plan of the district. So I think it was one that, you know, it forced me to, gain more knowledge of all that is Red Clay, other than the perspective of a partner in my former role within the Delaware Department of Education, and also as a parent. So it was just a good opportunity to really get to know and learn the district in an in-depth way.
Now, I know this is probably one of the little check boxes that you're going to use to help introduce yourself to the community. Are there other things that you're doing too?
Yeah, so I've literally hit the ground running, from spaghetti dinners at Richardson Park.
This is like the 3rd or 4th time we've been together.
Yes.
The arts
so and
activities.
Really engaging with our arts community, whether that's the Elementary Choral Festival, Middle School Band Festival, the instrumental recital and solo concert that was held at Cook a week ago, the biotech fair that was hosted here at Conrad. So just a whole host of opportunities to truly just kind of inject myself into the system, get to know folks, allow folks to get to know me. Obviously, when a new leader comes into any organization, there's always some uncertainty as to what changes are going to be made. Right. I think a lot of times it's not even necessarily looking at the changes as much as what are the strengths and assets that we can build on. And there's so many within the district that we have the opportunity, I think, to leverage and build upon. So, I continue to meet with community partners, visit schools, and just participate in a lot of the activities that were already on the calendar as a good transition, again, to get to know the community. Skyline, for example, hosted a designer bag bingo, which was interesting because the Delaware Lottery actually had to have what they call the lottery police, for lack of a better term, actually on the scene to make sure that it was on par with gaming regulations. And, their parent support staff and folks had to fill out applications to ensure that it was literally structured and oversaw by the Delaware Lottery. So, just seeing that cafeteria full of predominantly ladies. There were a few isolated men in there trying to win some handbags playing bingo. Mother's Day is coming up. So, it was just a good opportunity. Again, those are one of many examples of things that have allowed me to get to know the community and allow me to share who I am with our stakeholders.
Right, because I think that's really important too, that people know change is coming because there's a new person and they want to know like who that new person is
Yeah.
in terms of what do you stand for, and so all of those kinds of opportunities for people to say hello and talk to you and hear you speak, I think is really important.
And it's important for me to be able to listen, learn, and observe, you know, and not come in with any kind of judgments or preconceived ideas or biases based on previous experience or other places that I've worked, but really get to know the culture and climate that is the Red Clay Consolidated School District. Again, highlight the strengths, and obviously where there's areas to improve upon or make changes, you know, we'll do that with a conscious thought and not just haphazardly coming in to change for change's sake, because that tends to cause more disruption than anything, and our focus has to be what's best for children. You know, and the more that we can minimize them from any broad-based change, but also make the change that are going to impact them in a positive way, is kind of the mindset that I'm coming into the district with.
Excellent, excellent. So that leads me to my next question then. As someone who has worked for DOE, that you had the luxury of seeing lots of different schools, lots of different school districts. What do you see as some of the strengths of Red Clay, and what appeals to you about that?
Well, the first thing is the diversity. The diversity of stakeholders, students, families that we serve, the large volume of programming, and whether that's looking at the arts, extracurricular programs, academic-based programs, the fact that the district is the only district in the state that really has a robust charter and magnet program. So the number of options that are available to our families. And for me, it's not even having the opportunity of seeing what's taking place across the state, really seeing that sometimes we have to change that narrative and not look inward. Because I don't think there's really a true example within the state for us to continue on the path of growth that we're on, as much as it is looking outside of ourselves, looking outside of the state of Delaware to see where those growth opportunities are. Again, we are the largest school district, and I think we're the ones that most districts in our state look toward to see how they're going to go about changes. You know, when we have a program such as the Cab Calloway School of the Arts, you know, no one else has that program. Right. But I do know a neighboring district, as they continue to grow, are looking to build a school of performing arts. But we have the model that they're going to look toward. So in order for us to continue to grow as a district, you know, where's that example for us? So my vision is one that's big. I think we should have visions that scare you. You know, so when they say dream big, you know, so I'm looking for us to be a regional and a national example of a diverse, comprehensive public school system that has a number of options. I mean, the fact that we're here right now on EdTV, you know, how many districts can tout that they have their own television station? You know, so I think that's, again, you know, a point of pride for me as superintendent of the district to be able to look at this. This is one of the many positives, things that we can build upon and really help grow the district.
Now, as you were in DOE, what are some of the challenges that you see in schools and in districts that you might see here, or that might help you think of ways to help us work smarter? Because I'll tell you, you couldn't find harder working people in the state of Delaware than here at Red Clay, but how can we work smarter? I
think alignment. I'm a systems guy, so really looking at what are the systems that drive the teaching and drive the learning. Again, you know, even trying to figure out, you know, we have 27 schools, 32 programs. Some days someone will say we have 28 schools and 31 programs, but really just thinking through how does that all work on one accord? You know, we have a transportation department that many may not know. We transport over 8,000 miles a day.
Wow.
So think about that. You know, we cover 8,000 miles of road a day. And we have a very high percentage of on-time pickups and drop-offs. But it becomes that one situation where a bus might be late that we tend to focus on. You know, so really seeing things from a broader statewide perspective is really looking at, you know, education, especially public education. As I mentioned earlier, we're charged with a lot of responsibility. You know, how can we be, you know, systematic in our approach to customer service, ensuring that every family, regardless of what zip code they may come from, whether they're in the inner city of Wilmington, you know, dealing with high rates of high trauma and stress as a community, or if they have the ability to, participate in, a robust community building where they have all their, needs being met, so to speak. But how can we be consistent in ensuring that every child, every staff member within every building that we're responsible for supporting has the necessary resources in a consistent fashion? Understanding that we can't please all, so there's some hard decisions that have to be made within that system, but we have the knowledge base and the understanding and the justification as to why we have to make such hard decisions when those times come. But again, ultimately, education is an experience. And how can we create an experience? I live by a quote that my experiences shape my biases, which leads to my actions. So if I'm limited in my experiences, then I have a false perception of how I see the world, which then I think then lends itself to how we interact with each other. And I think we see that playing out on a national level. So when you mention what impacts our educational system, you have things that come from a federal level down to a state level, really working with our policy advisors and our legislators. Fortunate in Red Clay that we have legislators who are engaged in our community, who have a pulse and an ear to what our needs are. So we have the school safety, the bus safety bill that's recently been passed, and again, giving Ed TV a shout out. They did the video for the public service announcement around bus safety. So again, really just taking into context all that we are charged with doing, and how do we use the necessary resources that our public has entrusted us with to meet the needs of all of our diverse learners in the district.
Absolutely. Let's pause for a moment.
Sure.
And let's do just a little lightning round.
Lightning, let's go.
Lightning, let's go. Okay, what's your favorite sport and team?
Football, Washington Redskins. So Eagles fans, don't hold that against me. It's the team that I grew up with.
Favorite time of year?
Favorite time of year is actually fall, winter. I like sweater weather, believe it or not. So you can kind of just dress up. And sometimes in fall, as the seasons change, obviously the leaves are beautiful. So I would say fall. Not that I love spring and I love summer, but I think fall would be my favorite.
Would be your favorite? Excellent. Favorite food?
Favorite fruit, Maryland crab cakes.
Oh, I'm right there with you. What's one thing that bothers you the most, like a pet peeve?
A pet peeve. I tend to be easygoing. Not too hot, not too cold. But untruths, lie. I don't like people who aren't willing to tell the truth. I'd rather just confront it and get it out in the open. So, storytellers, I say, and not in a good kind of,
not a good kind of
storyteller. Yeah.
So what is one thing that would be the opposite of your pet peeve?
Good conversation. I mean, I think this is something that I enjoy doing. I mean, because you get to know people through conversation. So, being able to just understand from people's perspectives. My truth is my truth. It doesn't necessarily mean that it's everyone's truth, but I think being open to other people's perspectives of the world only helps me grow. And I think if we had more of that, I think we'd all be in a better position.
Do you have a favorite word or saying that you use? You just cited the.
So favorite word or saying?
What did you just say about?
Honestly, I tell people that
bias and.
My favorite saying would be "Stay blessed." Because I think too often it's easy to point to the one thing that could be wrong. And we go through the day, and again, especially with our young people, our students, it's hard to get your mind off that assignment that you may not have gotten right, not realizing that you've probably done 6 or 7 other things well that day, but you tend to focus on. So I try to just look at the one positive. And I know, and I have to give you a shout out in terms of the way in which the middle school band festival closed. And you had mentioned how you and your husband basically count your blessings and the things that were a blessing to you on a daily basis. And I think if we really focus more on the positives, because there's more good than bad. So that saying for me is to just stay blessed. Look at all the good things that we have to focus on and not focusing on that one negative thing.
Do you have a favorite song or movie that you can listen or watch?
Favorite song or movie? That's a tough one. Favorite song or movie? I don't really think I do. I love all kinds of genres of music.
I was going to say, well,
You would start attending a few more, as I'm sure you will, a few more choral festivals and band festivals, and we're going to find you one.
Yeah, well, and at the elementary, typically around the winter concerts, hot cross buns is always one that sticks out because there's routinely like a clarinet or something that's not tuned right. But so no, I really.
Children have to start somewhere.
They have to start somewhere. No, I really in movies I can't pick one thing that I would say is a favorite movie.
Okay. So back to some more serious stuff. We're starting to wrap this up. Can you share your vision for the future of the district? So what are you looking to do, and what are maybe some first steps?
Yeah, so and like I said, I think really looking at accentuating the positives. That we offer a lot to our diverse families, but what I will say is really looking and focusing on this idea of fostering resilient learners. So I've had the opportunity to work with the authors of Fostering Resilient Learners, Pete Hall and Kristen Sauer, and doing a lot of the work around trauma-informed learning and teaching practices. So really understanding, where we find ourselves in current day in terms of who we are educating, and not only the child, but the families and the supports that families need. So for me, it would be strengthening our family and community engagement efforts so that we truly have a pulse on, what are the real issues that come into our school that may hinder or block a student from reaching their full potential. And in that same light or same vein, being able to support our educators who inherently take on that additional stress and trying to meet many of those unknown needs, because a lot of times they don't present themselves in those night needs packages that we present education or programs in. So how do we really engage and really look at trauma-informed teaching and learning practices to better support our educators, but also meet the needs of our students, and then work with our families to help our families be better connected to schools. We know many of our families throughout the district are working just to provide, those basic things that we know our children need, and how do we engage them in such a way so that they can understand and provide those supports, whether that's reading support when our students come home with homework, projects, extracurricular activities. So how do we work with our community and family to meet the varying needs that we know inherently come into our schools on a daily basis. So I think that would be a good first step for us to really take a good, hard, honest look. And as I continue to go around the district and engage, you have that opportunity to really see what are the trends, that a park might be dealing with, that Cook might be experiencing at maybe not at the same scale or same level, but it's still a need. So really looking at those trends throughout the district that we can really expand our efforts to ensure that we're supporting children and families in a more holistic way.
Well, now that kind of leads us to the idea of, to sort of cycle back to something that we talked about earlier, perception of the district. So under your guidance, how do you want people around the area to think of Red Clay? Well,
I think really engaging those who see the many positives that are already taking place, and sometimes it's going to be hard, right, based on people's own personal experience with whether it would be the school or the district to change that. But I would just say engage us and allow us to engage with you, to be able to demonstrate and show you. I mean, we can market, we can brand, but it's an experience, and it's ultimately what is the experience that we want our educators to be able to have when they come to work every day. More importantly, a former mentor of mine would tell me, what do you want the dinner conversation to be? Oh. So when families are coming home and they're coming off a stress-filled day of working to provide, and they ask their child, how was school today? What do you want the nature of that conversation would be? And I want that conversation for our students to feel empowered, that they have caring adults who are investing in them. But more importantly, they see and reap and know the benefit of a quality education that we're providing them. And I think through that, our parents will come to know and trust and continue to support, and also working with our families. I think we have a lot of support throughout the district, and really just highlighting and accentuating that. And where we fall short, you have to own it. You know, there's no sugarcoating it, you know, because we're not going to get it all right all the time. But in that reality, knowing that we're dealing with people, we're in a people business, you know, and there are a lot of uncertainties that come to us on a day-to-day basis, and some of those things surprise us as well.
That's
you know,
true.
you know, having the opportunity of you know, support with programs and various partners, and the fact that as a district, we're not in this alone. You know, there are a whole host of community partners and the nonprofit, private partnerships and things that we have that are a part of this Red Clay community that's helping facilitate the work. So it's how can we be consistent and strategic and engaging them on an ongoing, regular basis, so that we're not the only ones telling our story, but we are in control of that narrative, you know, through the experiences that we're providing children and families, you know. So when folks come to see and know and hear about the Red Clay, it's a brand that they can get behind, and they know that it's one that they're willing to support.
Right, and that's where they want their children to go to school.
Right, and that they're part of it.
Right.
And it's not in isolation of their daily lives or their community. We are the fabric of the community. So, you know, that's what we ultimately want folks to walk away with each and every day.
Do you have, I mean, I know you've just started, so this may not be fully fleshed out. How do you want people to see you as the superintendent of this district?
You know, honestly, the same way that I've approached every other situation. You know, I'm collaborative in nature. You know, I'm in a position to be a servant leader. You know, so this isn't a, you know, I've reached a pinnacle of a career. This is a vocation for me. So this is something that I've committed my life's work to. That's why I took the challenge. You know, each day people are like, "Oh, good luck," and I'm like, "Well, this is something I signed up for." And I think people's perception of all that a superintendent, you know, encounters or is responsible for, but I'm a part of a bigger team. You know, so I'm fortunate. You know, with Dr. Broomall, with Gio Flory, our CFO, Dr. Ammon, you know, our staff in curriculum and instruction. To be able to understand that there's a strong support team that's in place as well. So, you know, while I'm sitting here solely, you know, in a solo interview, there's a whole host of support staff behind me, and not only that, but those who are at the building level. All of our school administrators, our building principals, who spend tireless hours, you know, around the clock, you know, and our educators and our teachers. So, you know, while I get to be the face, so to speak, of the district, I am also conscious that I'm representing not just myself. You know, I'm representing every 16,000 plus students, whether that's a student with special needs, whether that's a student who's immersed in the arts, whether that's an athlete, whether that's a student who's lost their way and really trying to figure out who they are as they come through our system. For every educator, whether you're at the secondary level, middle school or high school, elementary, within our special programs at First State School, you know, I represent a collective. So just as much as it is how do I want people to see me, I'm conscious of I'm a constant reflection, and I live in the community. So, you know, it's, you know, I got to make sure that I pick up in my yard, right? You know, and because that represents the district. You know, how I carry myself on the weekend. So I'm very conscious about the influence that this position holds, but I'm also understanding that it's not about me. It's never been about me, you know, in education and anything that I do in life. So it's about what service can I provide and supports can I provide to truly those who are on the front line, who are in those classrooms right now, working tirelessly, you know, educating our precious cargo as we transport them to school, you know, and those influential minds that we have who you know, see in the future in so many different lights in terms of what they can become, you know. So that's who and what I represent. And again, I'm always conscious that it's always bigger than me.
Excellent. So the last question. Finish this statement. The future of education is
bright.
Excellent.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much for taking the time to be here with us today. And thank you for tuning in to Red Clay this month, and we hope to see you next month.